I am going to check the audio first before I do my countdown and make the official beginning to the stream, so have some patience with me. Oh yeah. Everything but YouTube is being streamed on today, so we can't do Untethered on YouTube. It's not a good idea. Stepped away for too long. That means I have to. It looks like I gotta refresh everything to get it up and going to do the test. Yesterday was weird too because I actually tried. They had this new setup on, or they have this new setup on Rumble now, where you can use the OBS instead of going through their web server.
Mm.
And I tried it out, and not one bit of my audio was coming through on Rumble or on YouTube, but it came through perfectly fine on DLive and Kick.
YouTube, yeah. I was review a couple bits and pieces, and Jesus, watching yesterday's stream, so entertaining.
Yeah, it's
yeah, but yeah, YouTube was okay.
You heard the voice on YouTube?
Yeah.
Now, see, I couldn't hear anything on here.
It
was really strange. Now, Twitch.
Stream to go to sleep to. Yesterday's.
Yeah, the Blender one. Oh,
yesterday. Yeah.
Oh no, that was actually a good video. You guys just don't have good taste. That's all. I blame that on you.
It was tedious.
It was tedious, yes, for you. For you and Tan.
Okay, it
was tedious. Now this stuff is really strange how it's doing this. It's supposed to be streaming, but I can't really tell, to be honest with you. And
not received any notifications on YouTube, and I.
Well, YouTube's not streaming.
Yeah.
That one. This is the no stream for YouTube.
Okay.
So.
Excuse me.
It says I'm streaming on Kick, but there's no. Oh my goodness. Seriously. I've got every one of them freaking loading, and none of them's freaking showing me anything. I should probably drop all the tabs and just start over.
Rumble's okay.
Rumble's coming through?
Both channels.
Cool. DLive is. It still says that it's loading. I've even got the countdown on Twitch. I'm gonna go ahead and just drop these tabs and reopen them. Sometimes that helps. I, need to go through and freaking get rid of some of these programs. You still there?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to check because my my screen and everything is acting contrary. I'm quitting Teams. I'm quitting all of that. I had freaking Steam on too, which has always slowed everything down as well. So this whole thing is getting a little ridiculous, to be honest with you.
You need a machine for production usage only. You need an environment for production usage only.
That's the bad part. It is like I have to use Teams and Discord for freaking contacting people and stuff, and it's still too much. And then I need to get rid of these emulator games too that I've been using for my game streaming. There's a lot of them that I don't need anymore, and I've even done my Steam games to where freaking they're uninstalled on the computer, and if I want to play them, I just install them and play them, and then when I'm done, I re-uninstall them. If that makes sense, you know. And it just, I'm getting way too much information on here and that's just for doing this. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only purpose I use this for, and then using it for like Blender and everything. And I still say frickin' Windows is frickin' doing shit to make things run slower, because the moment I started getting these updates for Windows 11, that's when this shit started happening. They're putting way too much shit in their programs.
Yes, you still are using those programs, that operating system.
Yeah. Well, it's because the browsers and all that stuff that everybody thinks is so cool, freaking for privacy use, it screws people who want to live stream. We don't get to have the reach that we get if we use just Google Chrome or.
Hey.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, that's just a browser. That's
the way it is.
Yeah, what's that got to do with your recording?
The browsers freaking actually restrict how many people can freaking see your stuff, because you use SEO. Search engine SEO is really important for a streamer.
We say to the person who doesn't put any SEO work into any of his stuff, no descriptions, no titles, very limited information on titles.
You won't get very many views.
Well, yeah, but that's what you do.
Well, my
that's
SEO.
What you do.
No, my SEO is good. You don't need descriptions and stuff like
Yes, you do.
that. No, you don't.
SEO is also about people actually being able to physically
That's,
see
that's the old
the
school way. You're
information.
talking about writing a title out and then writing a description and making sure that all the words in the title and description is in the SEO. That people don't do that no more. That's outdated.
Well, some people do that. Some people consider that to be good form.
Good foam. I love how you said that. You sound like a freaking Englishman from the 1700s.
Whatever.
Foam. Good foam, my good man. My good man. I'm getting tired of it. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna freaking go off of this. If shit's fucking shit's streaming, then fine. If it's not, I don't give a shit. I'm trying to get freaking one tab to freaking open up and it's still fucking loading. You know what I mean? I'm like, seriously, dude. This shit makes me aggravated all to hell, dude.
You should have done all of this pre-stream.
I just literally got off of the stream before I came onto this one. It was one right.
Or in that case, it's called time management.
That's what I do. I actually do it better than most people do it.
15 minutes? Yeah, you do better than most people.
Pretty much 90% of the people, dude. I'm very consecutive. Do you realize how much time I freaking put in? Like I hear people always talking about, oh yeah, Roger does all this stuff. You go look at the time frames that I put things on with my live streams. Everything is consecutive at my time, 5 p.m. in Central Standard Time. Everything. Like right today, I'm late.
I think next time I've got a large contract happening, or a large meeting happening, I'll say during the month, let's say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and actually don't appear until 8 o'clock that night.
I tried the whole what's the best time of the day for people to watch your videos and that whole 9 yards. And then it came to the big disappointment when I found out that that's just hypothetical. Like there's no actual proof. So I don't play into that no more. I used to think it was important. Now, like over where you're at, you know what's the best time to put a video in England up on is 10 o'clock in the morning.
Why?
Don't know. I have no freaking clue. I have no freaking clue. I get better views in England at 10 o'clock in the morning than I do at freaking any other time of the day.
Okay.
10 or 11. It all depends on what time of the year it is. But it's really strange that way. And then like here in the United States, 5 p.m. my time is usually the best time to get American views. But yeah, I'm done with it. I might just pop up Task Manager just to piss my freaking computer off. If for some reason when you pop Task Manager up, everything straightens out. Have you ever noticed that?
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. If you have issues where like stuff is freezing and stuff, go in there and just start your Task Manager and bam, it'll start up.
No, it won't. You have to stop sessions yourself.
I'm telling you, dude, it works every time.
Believe me, I've been in the trade for 30 odd years now. The majority of my commercial stuff has been using Windows, acting as first, second and third line support for Microsoft products,
Well,
Microsoft page users, and I tell you,
I'm gonna tell you then that you suck, dude. You should have been doing a
one
better.
of us are professional. One of us have been in the
Yeah, I know,
industry.
and this is the reason why I'm giving you my freaking lifetime complaint because you've been in the business and you're the guy that I've been freaking wanting to talk to. Okay, you need to step up your work because shit ain't working out.
Right? I'm not employed by Microsoft. I'm not a Microsoft executive.
You said that
Nor
you said
would I
that
want to be.
you said that you do contracts
Yeah,
for Microsoft.
companies. Yeah.
So you're the guy. You're the one. So you're the guy who freaking does all the shitty work, and then nobody freaking blames you because you're on a contract and you don't.
Yeah. As soon as they start complaining, I'm almost ending my contract. Yeah.
You see, you're not slick, dude. I know. You think I don't know? I know what's going on, dude.
Uh, um, I've never had any major complaints because of my work.
Okay. This whole thing right here is really getting interesting. I mean, I don't understand how
You don't understand how.
I don't understand how everything's slowed down like this. You know,
Just restart your machine. That's always the easiest solution. After all, we already are an hour and a half late, so you.
an hour. Yeah. Well, I can just do the fucking stream and just say the hell with it because this shit's getting annoying. I can do my make believe or do my countdown and go into it and say fuck it. I mean,
And you can upload the stuff afterwards.
no, I mean it's probably streaming. I don't know. I would like to freaking be able to verify it by going to my actual stream and seeing if the video's there. You know what I mean? It's like fucking ridiculous. Just complete freaking ridiculous shit. There we go. I can see it now. Okay, here it is. I actually heard myself say ridiculous. So I'm gonna go off of faith and say that the rest of them are streaming. We have everything streaming on Rumble, X, Twitch, Kick, and D Live.
Rumble is running fine. I just muted you and check.
YouTube because we don't want to mess around with the whole freaking censorship stuff. So and everything of that nature. Don't want to get in trouble with the channel either. So if anything, I'll edit through it and we'll get it put up there where it's appropriate for YouTube's services, terms of services. So with that, I'm going to do my live stream countdown and we'll go start the show. So 3, 2, 1, now. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Untethered. Today we are going back to the theme of the internet is a scam. And with me today we have Mark Edworthy from England, and he he he, he is upset with me because we are running late, and I have wasted his valuable time, and he's been calling me cuss words and stuff. He's been calling me English cuss words, you know what I mean, which is like the nice way of saying that you suck. Um, so with that, I wanted to kind of let everybody know that we are streaming on Rumble, X, Twitch, Kick, and D-Line, but we are not streaming on YouTube. We might put an upload of it later on if Mr. Robot comes in and behaves himself and doesn't say anything that's inappropriate or bad, that's controversial, that might damage our reputation among the community, because that's very important to us. We don't want to upset the natural order of things. Isn't that right, Mark?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Do you remember where we left off last week?
Yeah, I didn't join you last week.
Or the last time we were talking about the internet being a scam. I'm sorry.
I can vaguely remember it. Something like three, maybe 4 weeks ago now.
Now, we went through and we discussed that we discussed the hackers in the early 1980s first. We discussed the one that was the most infamous was the Max Headroom hack that took place in Chicago, and we discovered that. And then we talked about Captain Crunch, John Draver, where he was phone freaking, and kind of got into a little bit about phone freaking, had a conversation about that. But then the one thing that I wanted to bring up too was the fact that like a lot of these supposed hacker arrests that everybody came to believe as being true back during that time period wasn't. Like, they really don't even have sufficient amount of data to say how many people were arrested for hacking, and I thought that was interesting. Then we started talking about the hackers during those times, like 414s, which were a group of teenagers in Milwaukee. And then we got into the more serious stuff, and we started talking about CDK Global. And right there was where we ended up leaving after that, because that had taken up pretty much the time that we wanted to do. And we were talking about how CDK Global was involved in securing documents, making it easier for, or their job was to freaking what was it? It was to securing documents and everything for car dealerships, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's but anyhow, they ended up getting hacked, and it caused a lot of issues for freaking the car industry. And I wanted to bring that up, and it took us a little while to go through it, because we ended up getting into other companies like Brickfield Business Partners, and CDK Global was involved with them, and that ended up being a hack that took place previous to CDK's hacking that took place. And then Brickfield Residential Properties, which was another incident that happened with him, and I believe that one was the one that was supposed to have involved the Canadian military. I believe it or not, they had a contract with them and they were hacked. And these were all involved in CDK Global. And for me personally, I think it was all inside jobs. You know what I mean? Because you can see where it happened more than once. But we got through all of that, and then finally we're here where we're at now in part 2 of The Internet is a Scam. So do you remember much about the Chaos Crew era, Mark Edworthy?
Not overly.
Have you ever heard of Lizard Squad?
Not to mind, no.
You know what a Black Hat hacker group is?
Black Hat security penetration groups. Again, you know my loathing for the term hack and hacker in the context you're making. But yeah, I'm aware of Black Hat, so-called Black Hat and White Hat penetration, security penetration.
Now, Lizard Squad was most notorious because they made headlines in like 2014 and 2015. They did high-profile DDoS attacks, including against companies, which included like Sony. They're basically an online group who are known for doing DDoS attacks, which are basically distributed denial of service, is what that means. So, and what they basically do is they flooded, they flooded networks with so much traffic that it crashes, and they're less about like stealthy, and they're more about like public disruption and trolling and things of that nature. So that was one of the groups that I did want to bring up because of the Sony attack. They attacked PlayStation Network in 2014. And they also did Xbox Live with massive DDoS attacks as well. And what they ended up doing is making both of those networks unusable for hours and days and stuff. You know what I mean? So the big question is why do you think they would why do you think they would do that, Mark?
Yeah, I don't like to speculate on reasons. Could be hundreds of reasons, thousands of reasons. Somebody's having a bad day. Somebody has got a grudge against a company. God Almighty told him. Any reason.
Now, the popular story was the fact that they did it for attention and trolling and stuff of that nature. And they wanted to like expose security weaknesses, and that at one point they actually went on the internet and was bragging about it on Twitter. You know what I mean? They also did crazy stuff like they tweeted a fake bomb threat at one point. It caused a flight that carried John Smedley, a Sony executive. It caused the flight to be diverted and everything because of it. Eventually, because of that made it to where that it ended up bringing the FBI into the situation. It brought attention to them, so they had to come in and eventually some of the members of the group was arrested. And I don't know if you've ever heard of any of these guys. Have you? Uh,
Names wouldn't mean anything.
well, I mean, have you ever heard of John Smedley? First off,
Rings a bell back again.
he was a part of Sony.
Even if I did take notice of specific names, it wouldn't have interested me in any sort of long-term sort of contacts.
But see, back then, back during the 2014-15, Sony was a big target because if you remember, everybody considered Sony to be the Antichrist. You know what I mean? They swore up and down. Well, everybody who had any sense. You know what I mean? Like, I know that there are some people who didn't believe that, but I mean, come on.
No.
Huh? What?
I'm not going to comment on that one.
Oh, so why aren't you going to comment on that one? You don't believe that Sony was the Antichrist?
Sony is
You froze. Now, out of all of them, this one guy that was in the group stood out to me the most. It was a Finnish teen. He was a young guy. His name was Julius Kivimaki. Now, this guy was brought into court. He was convicted of over 50,000 cyber crimes, okay? And the most messed up part about it was he only received a suspended sentence for doing all that. Okay, over 50,000 cyber crimes, and he only received a suspended sentence.
cyber crimes. Is that actually a legal technical illegal?
Well, I mean, it's a good
term?
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
If you want to Google that, go for it. Google that and find out, man. Now the group
More
later.
than likely, white collar crimes, fraud. Yeah, that's cyber crimes. I don't think there is there's no legal definition.
Well, especially considering that it doesn't really go along with the actual law that was created for it. Well, this is in Finland too, though. I'm guessing because it was.
Okay, so Finland, that's outside of the EU, isn't it? Likely.
He would have been arrested and tried according to Finland's laws. So that is an interesting thing to think about. Now, the messed up part about these groups is that the group later tried to launch a DDoS for hire service called Lizard Stressor. But even that led to like law enforcement crackdowns. You know what I mean? Now their attacks aren't like really infamous for like freaking data theft, but more or less they were busted for freaking mass disruption. You know what I mean? And I find it odd that even after that, you know, that's the thing that the common theme with a lot of these guys is, if you notice, the ones that are actually calling themselves hackers, they're not really freaking doing dangerous shit. You know what I mean? The ones that are supposedly supposed to be the more dangerous ones during these time periods, And for me, it goes back to what we were talking about in the last episode of this when it comes to CDK. I really feel that was an inside job because, like, most of these people that are getting credit for being these hackers that are doing all of these seriously harmful things supposedly against PlayStation and Xbox and all this, they're doing it for attention. You know what I mean? It just something stinks to me is what I'm basically saying when it comes to this, like this this group especially, and you see it constantly, like with the Lizard Squad and then other ones. Like they were more about mass disruption rather than for data theft or anything. You know, I think a lot of them are just nothing more than scapegoats.
The term, and as you've demonstrated on this already within the last half an hour, the term hacker is just a media spun word.
Yeah.
And yeah, and how many times have you used the term hack or hacker so far?
Well, I mean, I use it for freaking a reason, though, because people need to understand that we got to get rid of those old ideologies like food hack and all that. That's old hat shit. You know what I mean? We're in the new ages now where people have to be hip and cool like the cool kids. You know what I mean? It's about what the cool kids say. It's not about.
So if the cool kids grunt on just grunt all day, then we should grunt all day.
Well, I mean, isn't that what's really going on, man? You know what I mean? Like these days, all the kids are freaking disgruntled, and we're getting disgruntled too, right? Like it kind of goes hand in hand. Yeah. Now, understand too, though. Don't be confused between Chaos Crew and Chaos Computer Club. Okay. Now, the CCC, which is the Chaos Computer Club, is a different organization than this Chaos Crew. The Chaos Crew, or the CCC, is known for hacker and digital civil rights organizations. They're based in Germany, and they were established in 1981. Now, they're recognized for advocating private rights, exposing security vulnerabilities, and promoting ethical hijacking practices, which I don't, or hacking practices, ethical hacking practices. Which that just sounds
so
like...
To use your definition of hacking is anybody who's willing to commit computer-based crime, usually resulting in white-collar fraud. So how can white-collar be?
No, it could be blue collar. It could be a blue collar crime.
No, when it comes to computers, generally, you're talking about inputting data and doing technical things without actually opening up the case, and so it's white collar.
What about hackers that hack warehouses so that shitloads of merchandise?
Well, they're still doing a white collar sort of job, aren't they?
You know, I mean, there could be people in the web.
If they aren't going to.
Oh, he's frozen.
Actually changing wire diagrams on, I don't know, little robots.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to bring the robots into all this. It's like that's kind of out there, dude. Like, I was going to leave the robots out of it, but you had
Well, whatever, all forklift drug trucks then, whatever, anything that, any sort of hardware that aids in warehouse logistics facilities.
well, it's just like, you know, and I know that we went over this before and we weren't able to make a stream out of it. And I didn't mention this before, but I think I should actually mention it about this freaking Chaos Computer Club. They're just as ridiculous as what the Chaos Crew is, too, though. You know what I mean? Because look at it right here. They're talking about shit like ethical hacking. And then they had they hosted an annual freaking Chaos Communications Congress. So now they're creating a Congress of ethical hacking practice groups. You know what I mean? Come on, dude. Seriously. That's just... How can you ethically freaking hack or freaking...
I don't like the term hack.
Well, you go ahead and figure out
penetration testing. Penetration testing is a job. We both know somebody who does this as a living.
But still, come on,
yeah.
I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. You know who usually gets those jobs? People who got busted for freaking doing it the illegal way. You know that, right? They get in trouble.
No, I've done some security. I've done well, a lot of my system administration related roles have been in one way or another related to tightening security on or maintaining security processes. But I wouldn't call myself a hacker, or in that context at least. I would call myself a hacker because I've got a soldering iron here, I've got screwdrivers behind me, I open up cases all the time, so and therefore I'm modifying an actual piece of hardware, therefore that could be determined as hacking.
Now, with this Chaos Computer Club, the thing that's messed up about it is like it has like over 7,000 freaking members, registered members. Okay, they're supposed to be doing something that isn't really acceptable. You know what I mean? And they're actually going into a freaking organization and registering themselves. You know, I mean that's taking it a little bit too far on the whole thing. I don't know. To me, that just seems ridiculous, to be honest with you.
So how do you know if something's not secure unless you test it for that security?
You do it in-house. You don't go get...
Yeah, precisely.
You know? I mean, this is an actual Chaos Computer Club.
Therefore, that's what it is.
You know, these aren't people working for a corporation. These are people hired by corporations to do it.
Yeah, contracts. You
know, I mean, so you're
hiring from me, getting a contract to, I don't know, put a load of Ethernet cables, for some organisation, or do some network system administration for some organisation. No more different than that.
Well, I mean, they could call themselves like digital rights activists or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Because that's really what they're into. They're into like digital rights and privacy and like maybe security research. But come on, dude, ethical hacking? Are you serious?
Again, don't like hacking because called the mainstream consideration for hacking is for somebody to gain unauthorized access to a computer system. So how can you be an ethical hacker? How can you ethically get unauthorized access into a system.
I wish Mr. Robot was here because you know why?
That's meaningless. That's the
He would be so mad at me, dude, just talking all this shit. You know what I mean? Because like he's Mr. There's ethics in hacking, and just talking that crazy shit like it's true.
no, because like the common usage of that term these days.
It's illegal. Yeah, I mean that's basically what it comes down to. It's illegal. There's no
This
cutting through.
means it refers to, or if it's unauthorized, then yeah, it's illegal.
Right, you know what I mean? So that's the one thing that I have an issue with when it comes to this group and people like that, because there's no such thing. It's like when you're doing it, you're still breaking the law. And they go as far as like create these events, you know, they organize these events like I was talking about with the communication congress thing. And
But and on if they organise events, then what they're doing is authorised. Therefore, it cannot be hacking using the current usage of the term. Therefore, yeah, it's an indefinite.
And then they're also probably registering themselves as a club too, which also sets them up to where they can get away with a lot of the shit they're pulling. Because like even here in the United States, we still recognize the difference between clubs and freaking like bars. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference. You can do things in a club that you can't do in a bar.
You're talking about a different sort of club. You're talking about.
No, I mean a clubhouse.
Yeah. Again, you're talking about.
It's like in England, you would also call them lodges. You know.
Yeah, you are.
They've got different.
Using one definition of a club,
They've got different regulations. You do know that, right? Like they actually do have different standards that they can
submitting it for. Yeah, again, you're using the word club in two different contexts.
I'd almost bet I'm not. I could almost guarantee you.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about these guys is when they do these organizations, they go as far as like publishing research and shit. So they go and they do this stuff and then they freaking publish their research so that other people can read it and learn from it. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, that's pretty messed up. And then they turn around and they flip it around. They want to talk about at transparency where they have to freaking have transparency while they're hacking other people's computers for them and getting paid for it. You know?
So who do they publish these documents to?
They freaking openly freaking sell them in these freaking communications.
So I'm a big corporation. I employ these people for penetration testing. I put a disclaimer. I put a NDA underneath. So I'm saying that any documentation is the ownership of the company, and they cannot use it for their own usage. So they violated the contract in the first place, which would result in civil action, and B, they could potentially, depending on what they've done and where in which jurisdiction they're working in, violated custodial law. Therefore, could be looking at a custodial sentence on top.
Or it all depends too on what they're publishing too, like what.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Like if their research is specifically to like exposing security flaws and things of that nature, then maybe that is okay. I don't know, but I don't. That would probably be something that their customers would most likely be upset about. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to go and publish something about security flaws and people know that freaking your corporation is the one that hired these people, you know what I mean? They're just telling the general public exactly what your security flaws were and how which direction to go when it comes to hacking their stuff. So and I don't know. That's just me, though. That's my way of looking at it. I think that they would probably be really frustrated about that actually taking place. Now, one thing they did do too, I forgot to mention, is in 2011 they analyzed and reported on government surveillance software, um, which that would have probably been before Snowden, wasn't it?
Sorry, government.
Yeah, that would have been
Yeah.
before. That would have.
Yeah, you said government. Last time I checked, this world wasn't run by one world order.
Yeah, it is actually. Haven't you heard? I mean, how many crazy shows have you
Which
been on?
government? Which government? Which government? There isn't the government. There's no such thing as the government. Which government?
Most likely, they're talking about the U.S.
Yeah, that makes sense. The government. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that one.
Okay, so you do understand that the United States is the only country that's important, right?
That's what I mean.
Like, seriously.
Your penis is bigger than everybody else's, aren't they?
No, just bigger than the Chinese. Everybody knows that our penis is bigger than the Chinese.
I don't know. I haven't checked the data.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised you said that. But anyhow, the one thing too, though,
But
that
yeah, to answer your question, it would be before Snowden.
but it was before Snowden, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm not too sure on what government that was. Later on, I can probably pull that up, but I could probably do it right now. Just to find out what government the CCC exposed in 2011. In 2000 oh wow, it was a number of government actions and disclosures that came to light, including the exposure of Guatemala Bay files leaks, the revelation of the FBI surveillance of peace activist groups, and the U.S. military development of software for social media manipulation. Additionally, the year saw the 2011 TRICARE data breach and the 2011 U.S. debt ceiling crisis. Wow, that was a big deal. In April 2011, WikiLeaks and other organizations released 779 declassified documentations on Guantanamo Bay detainees, exposing cases of innocent citizens held without trial and detainees as young as 14 years old. FBI surveillance of peaceful groups. The ACLU of Southern California reported that the FBI had extensive surveillance and documented the activities of peaceful activist groups, including their participation in the immigration reform movement and in fundraising for earthquake relief, and had documented their public statements advocating nonviolence. Then the military social media manipulation software, The Guardian, revealed that the U.S. military was developing software to secretly manipulate social media sites by using fake online personas to spread pro-American propaganda. Then in 2011, TRICARE data breach. A security breach at TRICARE exposed the data of 4.9 million military hospital and clinical patients. And then 2011 U.S. debt ceiling crisis. The year saw, that's where the debt ceiling went up. The year saw a political crisis centered on rising the debt ceiling, leading to the passage of the Budget Control Act of 2011. Now, that was it. That was what went on there. That's what I pulled up. So now it was supposed to be in 2011. The government surveillance software. So that would have been the FBI whenever they were surveying.
FBI or NSA?
It says the FBI surveillance of peaceful groups. The ACLU of Southern California reported that the FBI had extensively surveilled and documented the activities of peaceful activist groups.
According to the College of
According to ACLU. No, that would be ACLU. That would be an activist group, wouldn't it?
I see. Oh, yeah, isn't the University of Los Angeles? No. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. ACLU meaning, the American Civil Liberties Union. So yeah.
Okay.
So they got caught by their people they were snooping on, basically. So it's interesting. Okay, so also let me point out too, there is a difference between the CCC, which is the Chaos Club, and then the other group. I forgot what it was. I remember the last time we did this, it ended up freaking getting all weird and shit because I had to remember it, and that's the bad part. I wish freaking I was able to save that one. That was a really good episode, but it was both of these episodes put together. That was the only down part to it. We would have had a 6-hour long video on it.
Yeah, so we've already spent 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours on this.
Now, whenever I was talking to you too about CompuServe and everything, that was one thing that I did want to get into. I know we talked about it a little bit when it came to the last time about CompuServe. And for me, I mentioned it the other day when we were talking about the World Wide Web and how everything has become all about the URLs, and it's all about metadata and freaking everything being digital. You know what I mean? But from when we had that conversation with Dave Kelso, and he started talking about old technology and stuff like that, that got me to thinking when it came to, in the beginning, when we were still using the internet on analog systems, you know what I mean, where you took the phone and you stuck it on the receiver, and that's how you ended up getting your internet. I think the thing that really annoys me the most is like when you take a look at that and then you look at today and how everybody's freaking being spied on and snooped on. And they're trying to find all your information and stuff, and how they're doing it through your URLs and your freaking metadata and things of that nature. Why is it that freaking we decided to back out of doing it the old-fashioned way instead of improving it and making it better in that fashion so that people aren't able to spy on us and pull our data, you know what I mean?
Well, that's up to the user, isn't it? It's the user that agree to these agreements. It's the user that will click the little I agree tick box on any new social media platform. This is more down to the responsibility of the user.
Well, I mean, it's really not, you know what I'm saying? Like in today's world, when it comes to getting
So what? The user doesn't have any agency of their own. They are physically forced to click on that tick box without reading the terms of service or not understanding the terms of service
it's not even
agreement.
do you have a URL? Do you have a URL on your freaking computer right in front of you right now?
On
The browser that you're looking at.
browsers, Windows open, one looking at the Elements or Elements chat rooms. Obviously, that's got a URL attached to it, and another one is related to a Google search.
So when I've got a URL freaking on my freaking browser right here, I just because it's somebody else's or some other platform and everything, that doesn't mean that I don't have a URL. Okay, everything has a URL. There's no terms of services. This is something. This is something that freaking just automatically comes, and that's how they track you, is through URLs most of the time if they want to find out where your location and stuff is.
I think you are overly simplifying to such an extent that it doesn't even make sense.
You know what a URL stands for? Universal Resource Locator. It's also called a web address.
Yeah. Or hyperlink or href or what most people lazily call links these days.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, why would they call it a resource locator though?
Because it's a locator of a resource.
Which would be you and me. You're a resource. I'm a resource.
A web-based resource. A web page.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and they can track that. They can track that according to your URL because that's what they were created for. You know?
Each individual person doesn't have their own unique URL.
Every platform that you freaking go on to create a freaking account and you got a URL. Every website you create, you've got a URL that goes to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a way of locating you and finding out what you're doing.
No, only a method of finding.
No, that's exactly
a specific page, a particular resource.
It's called the Uniform Resource Locator.
Uniform.
Locator. Big word right there. Locator. That means
much like a postal address.
It's a path to a specific page or file. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A resource.
Or a network.
Much like a
network.
Resource. Much like a postal address is a address of a connection to a actual physical building.
Or a network port, right?
Not a port. Oh, actually,
To make a
usually the,
connection, you need
the,
to
the
have
syntax of a URL would contain something would have the protocol first. So yeah, port,
hmm
and then maybe port number at the end.
See, so that they get you in the connection as well.
Hey, sorry, what do you mean?
With the network port. When you set up your network to get on your computer and go onto the internet, you have to freaking go into a port, don't you?
No, you access specific resources using specific ports.
hmm
So if you're looking at a web page, then you're using port, generally speaking, TCP port 880 for insecure non-SSL based 509 certificate pages, and port 443 for secure pages.
Well, you also have to think about like in files too. You turn around and you freaking you you, you have reference points and stuff that are within freaking files too, like they're like named anchors, that are inside of the
Procedures. Yeah.
HTML files and stuff like that. So when you turn around and you put a freaking file up, you know what I mean? They can even track you with that stuff too. You know. Um,
The They can the web admin again using the term "they" in
you
extremely
know
broad
that they are.
context, like you and Mr. Robo was doing yesterday.
You know.
But
You know who.
system administrators can generally be able to tell which page you would have accessed, which resource you have accessed, which media file you've accessed through a web browser.
Now it gets even um, more intricate too. Because have you ever heard of an ASC2,
What?
an ASC2 character set?
Okay. Yeah, standard. Yeah, I don't want to go into the entire thing about character sets because they are extremely can be an extremely complicated subject. But yeah, it's how you recognize different character sets.
Yeah. So that basically it does what they consider. It converts it from what they consider to be a freaking unsafe ASC to freaking characters,
What?
basically. So it's
Hi.
they freaking take the URL and they convert it into what they consider a valid ASC2 format. Okay, um,
A human readable URL.
you know, because according to them, the URL encoding is supposed to be replacing unsafe ASC2 characters.
Oh, no. Oh, you mean
That's supposed
such
to be
as
those percentage.
websites? Yeah,
You know all those percentage sites you see in the freaking address?
occasionally come across websites or web pages that have spaces in the addresses.
And they have the percentage
And
signs followed
a
by
lot of
two.
newspapers, news agency sites do this on articles. It
Well, like
drives me absolutely mad.
right there on top where you see your URL. Okay, you see all those freaking percentage signs. They're followed by two hexadecimal digits. You see those?
uh,
That's an ACS2 right there.
is
Okay.
it? The colon. Can't remember. I would have to pull up some data on that one.
They're using all of that shit right there, dude. Freaking track and convert and determine which is what's safe and what's not safe.
Again, who are they?
Oh, you know who they are. Don't play it off like you don't know. Yes, you
That.
do. We keep saying they for a reason. One of these days, you will tell us. You.
You mean the blue fluffy aliens from Alpha Centauri that are in control of the lizard people that came originally from Atlantis?
Wow, dude, you're like out there. You are freaking hardcore, dude. I cannot believe you just said that on this channel, dude. That was embarrassing.
Just follow.
That was embarrassing. You're supposed to be an intellectual man, dude.
Far too much time around you and people like Mr. Robot.
You are supposed to be a well-educated, intelligent man, dude. How could you even say stuff like that on the show, dude? That's horrible.
You didn't pick up on the note of sarcasm.
Okay. Okay, so now that you've mentioned conspiracies and aliens and stuff like that, I wanna bring up the thing about CompuServe again and kind of go into that, because URLs and everything is kind of important. Okay, but like I think it was 1979, freaking CompuServe was ended up being sold to freaking Radio Shack. Okay, and I remember back in the day, Radio Shack had a really there actually was a conspiracy out about Radio Shack, because it was kind of like convenience stores. You know, like here in the United States we have Circle K. And it's like there's a saying that Circle K is on every corner, and that was the way Radio Shack was. They were everywhere. There were
Tandy, the European brand name for Radio Shack. It was at one point. It was extremely common to find Tandy in many towns in the UK.
Mm-hmm. They ended up selling CompuServe to freaking Radio Shack, I believe, and I believe their competitors were the Source, who they later, I think, bought freaking the Source out even after they freaking did CompuServe. Now,
sorry, the Source?
Huh?
The Source.
Yeah, it was another company that was like Radio Shack, an electronics company.
Okay.
It was an online service, actually.
Online service in 79?
Yeah, in 1979.
Are you sure there was not more postal service, you know?
Well, I'm sure back then they did have, like, freaking you buy something and then it was delivered to you, but you had to maybe pay freaking right there at the door or something like that, because, like, you got to remember back then they had cash on delivery and stuff. So I'm pretty sure freaking they had some kind of setup. It wasn't as precise as what it is today. You know, I'm definitely sure of that.
Yeah.
But they were actually one. Now H&R Block ended up buying the company after that in 1980, which was 1 year later. Okay, so you go from Radio Shack, which was highly controversial during that time, to H&R Block, which was even more controversial. Like here in the United States, everybody freaking talks shit about H&R Block because of, like, just the way they freaking have always done their dealings. Okay, they were another company like Radio Shack, where they were everywhere, and now you even have the ability to go in there and have your tax returns done for them or by them. You know what I mean? And they ended up buying out freaking Radio Shack and the Source and CompuServe all together, and they're the ones who ended up having them in 1980. Um, now, CompuServe from all through the 1980s literally dominated the industry. Okay. And well, actually, no. The Source, I think they freaking bought them out later. It wasn't in 1980. I don't think they had them. I couldn't tell you when they ended up buying them out, but I knew that they had them. They even got into comic books and stuff like that. So they had a lot of big things going on, and eventually, what happened is there was a deal where they ended up buying it. Um, yeah, they ended up buying the Source. That's what I just found out. The Source. Um, Eventually, they did buy the Source in the 1980s. They don't say specifically what year uh, in, in which they did it. I went and checked it on WikiLeaks. Now, one popular use of CompuServe. CompuServe dominated the industry during the 80s, buying their competitor, the Source.
In the US.
Yeah. Now, one popular use of CompuServe during the 1980s was file exchange, particularly pictures. In 1985, it hosted one of the earliest online comics, Witches and Stitches. CompuServe introduced a simple black and white image format known as RLE, which is run link encoding, to standardize the image so that they could be shared among different types of microcomputers. Now, with the introduction of more powerful machines enabling display of color, CompuServe introduced the much more capable graphic interface format, which is the GIF. Invented by Steve Wilhite. GIF later became the most common format for 8-bit images transmitted by internet during the early to mid 1990s. At its peak during the 1990s, CIS had an online chat system, message forum for a variety of topics, extensive software libraries for most personal computers, and series of popular online games, including Mega Wars, Island of Kesmai, and in 1994 it was described as the oldest of the big three information services. So this was one of the big three. If you know what that is, I know you do, Mark.
I've got a quick question actually. When you said the most common personal computers, well, personal computer by it's an IBM compatible PC. Hence, when people talk about PCs, they're talking about specifically x86 architecture, IBM compatible devices.
Now, it says in the 1990s it was.
Sorry, which I was going to go back on.
For most popular computers, that's what it.
In the US, which would be Apple and either PPC or no, be more. Well, it depends on which specific year, but Apple devices or IBM clones. In the US, things like the 16-bit alternative manufacturers, the Ataris and the Commodore Amigas, weren't that common.
Right. Well,
unlike in Europe, which it was more commonplace for home entertainment personal devices to be of the.
Now, Commodores were around, but they weren't as common as you know what I'm saying.
Alternative.
Yeah.
in the US, yeah, but it's different in Europe. And it was up until Commodore fell on their own sword back in '94, and Atari sort of gave up, and the Archimedes, BBC Archimedes range died a death. Yeah, they got out. They got replaced with IBM compatible PCs.
Well, see, the thing was with Atari, though, Atari figured out that it was better to just go into the video games things, and they were always the consoles that were dying out even in the '90s too with Atari. So instead of
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about
the consoles,
the
they were
computer industry rather than the console industry. I mean,
like
Atari was
today,
well known for music workstations.
but they're more into the programming too. They're more into the selling the frickin' technology. You know what I mean? They don't even do consoles very much anymore. Like even
Don't think
consoles.
they've done any sort of hardware.
Yeah, basically, like they're more into the hardware and stuff like that. And but I know that they have been out here and there, so I know that. But at that time period, they were to the point where they knew that the computer business wasn't their deal. They went more in the direction of the consoles and eventually just the freaking hardware and stuff for video games. I know that much. Now the big three information services also included Prodigy and American Online. Now, I don't agree with that because eventually freaking CompuServe was bought out by AOL.
Which was a Yahoo subsidiary now.
So
It could be right. It's one or the other company. Yeah, maybe what is now AOL, Time Warner, or Yahoo.
I guess there could have been a time period where CompuServe and AOL were running side by side, but eventually AOL ended up buying them out. And the thing that sticks out to me is I brought it up to you before about WorldCom. Uh, um, it was devised by WorldCom, the frickin' in 1997. They acted as a broker to sell frickin' CompuServe over to frickin' AOL. And if anybody knows about WorldCom, that's MCI Inc. And that's a phone company, basically, a telecommunications company. And you know about WorldCom, don't you? MCI?
Not within a modern context.
Huh?
Not within a modern context.
Well, when MCI first came out, the way they actually grew, WorldCom, they grew largely by acquiring other telecommunications companies.
So they were an infrastructure company. But again, as far as telecommunication or telephone and cell infrastructure companies in the US, you've only got 4 major players anyway, and unless that company was swallowed off by one of the 4, then they don't exist anymore.
Now, and WorldCom, it was like that. They went around and they started buying all of these freaking companies up, and then they started organizing them together and stuff. And this is where we started moving into the realm of freaking the World Wide Web, okay, which is what you fell in love with and you think the world of, and you worship as your Lord and Savior.
If you say so.
I was wondering when you was going to say something. But just to be clear, too, MCI ended up going bankruptcy or bankrupt.
Oh, so they weren't acquired by one of the four major players.
No, MCI or WorldCom was the ones who basically brokered the deal to sell frickin' CompuServe over frickin' AOL, which, okay, you need to understand, CompuServe ended up getting bought off by Radio Shack, then by H&R Block, and then the deal frickin' fell onto AOL, who bought.
Actually, MTI WorldCom is now owned by one of the biggest players, Verizon Communications.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the big four.
See, and this is what I'm talking about. This is consolidation. And I'll say it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. And this is the freaking stream for me to say it. It's all a freaking scam. Freaking the internet was never freaking set up to where me and you freaking share our ideas freely, because it's just an open universe of free information that's not what it was about, dude. It was about freaking these big corporations and government freaking tracking.
You're gonna have to use
They consolidated everything. They ended up getting it to where
services. What's stopping you? What's stopping you from creating a web server? Get another machine, create a web server out of it, and host your own content.
Do you know what comes with a web server? Do you know what comes with a web? You know what comes with a web server?
I built plenty of them in my time, but what do you mean?
A URL.
No, not with the web server. The pages that you
for me to host
use to provide.
For me to host a website, what do I need to buy?
A domain name. So yeah, a URL. You don't even actually technically need a domain name, but for convenience sake, yeah.
What's the domain name?
It's a address.
Oh, it's an address.
A URL. Address URL synonyms.
Oh, okay. So for me to have a freaking website, then I must have a domain name. Not only do I have to have it, but
no, I said I stated specifically that you don't have to use a domain name, but it's just more commonplace these days. It just makes a lot more sense, because if somebody looking for, I don't know, Roger Hansen, then it's easy to remember rogerhansen.com than a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, hold up now, dude. Freaking how's people gonna be able to find me if I don't have this domain name? Because I mean, I'm not doing what you suggested. I'm not gonna freaking get a freaking piece of paper, dude, and freaking put a flyer up at the grocery store and tell everybody to contact me and shit. You know what I mean? That's not gonna work. So I mean, other than doing it without a freaking domain name, which is an address, I mean, how the hell are people even going to know about?
You can just use a static fixed IP address. So you could call yourself 192.168.0.1, even though that's range is usually used for internal networks. But you could use something similar to that.
You know better. You know names don't mean shit. Like, they don't need to know my name.
Oh, it's much more. It's much more logical. Much more easy to find if you call yourself rogerhansen.com rather than 192.168.0.1.
Okay, Uniform Research Locator. Let me say that again, okay? They don't need to know my name. My name isn't important. All they're doing is locating freaking
an address. Yeah, I'm just using your name as an example. Address.
all they want to know is where 5-4321850 exclamation point comes from, where they're located, because that's the door they're going to be kicking in. You see what I mean with the freaking FBI? Because I'm a freaking hardcore parkour gangster.
Okay, and so the FBI goes to different countries and start kicking.
They do it right here in our country too. They don't discriminate. They when it comes to kicking doors, they really love kicking doors.
FBI is
You haven't heard that they've been doing that here in the U.S.?
only got US. It's it's only within the US. The FBI would not legally be able to do anything in.
Well, why don't you say that to freaking
this building in the UK?
Why don't you say?
Therefore, outside the FBI's jurisdiction.
Why don't you say that to freaking Bin Laden, that the U.S. hasn't got the freaking jurisdiction to kick in their door and put a bullet in somebody?
What's an FBI operation?
Well, I mean, it's still the U.S. It was still the U.S. government that did that.
Yeah, but you were talking specifically about the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now, before we get started here, I do want to actually, I want to take a break because when we come back, we're going to start talking about. I had to get you fired up because now we're talking about Aaron Swartz and his suicide. And
okay, it's not so important that we have to cover it again, surely.
Well, the last time we didn't get it in the video, remember? It wasn't actually freaking.
I mean, that's a very brief story. Somebody was convicted of illegally having unauthorized access to computers. He went to prison and he committed suicide. The end.
Oh, okay.
That's where it was down to.
Well, let me put on a 15-minute thing, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. We're just going to skim over it this time because, like, CompuServe is the one that I really wanted to get into because I think that it's important to talk about. And plus, Dave Kelso, before we go on that break, I want to say something. He came up with a great idea when it comes to concepts like CompuServe in the old ways. He was talking about that ARM, ARM. You remember that?
The RISC-based architecture, CPU architecture, yeah.
I really liked his freaking outlook on that one. You know what I mean? How to setting something up that's more modern according to that would be a really good idea. I think it would, at least the way he said it.
You'd have to explain it further.
It's been a while, and I wanted to record that stuff, but we never freaking, I don't think anything came out on the recording. Well, my conversation, you could hear me talking, but like you and Dave freaking, I screwed up.
I remember the interview, sort of. I can't remember the exact content.
But it was really good, so maybe someday we can get freaking Dave to get his ass on here and actually do a show with us and talk about it. So, you know, but let me go ahead and put a song on. You got coffee and everything?
I'll make another drink in a sec.
Okay, so go use the bathroom, whatever you do, and I'm going to go get a smoke in, and I'm going to drink some coffee and come back here, and I will talk to you guys in a little bit.
Awakening from an epic dream, awakening from the long dark night. And get that now. Awakening from history, awakening from duality. And get that now. the liberation of the human soul, to consciousness of the one and all, the activation of the sacred plan, the birthing of a new man, a new man. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. Awakening to new perceptions, awakening to the joy of life. Awakening to a new dimension, awakening to a paradise. The illusion of separation disappearing into unity, into the source of a high vibration, into the wonder of the mystery, a mystery. When the light within is revealed, all the pain and suffering shall be healed, and the truth of love is our destiny, living on the earth in peace and harmony. The Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Thrust 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. Mr. Robot rolled round. And if Mr. Robot rolled and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, where is the round roll? Mr. Robot rolled round. Here is an exercise demonstrating the union of in at the end of words, dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and striving, dividing and gliding and sliding and falling and brawling and sprawling and driving and driving and driving. Theophilus Thistler, the thistle sifter is sifting a sieve full of unsifted thistles. Plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. A sieve full of unsifted thistles, plus 3,000 thistles through the thick of his thumb. 3,000 thistles. Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round, and if Mr. Robot rolled around and rolled round,
Once the gods carved earth like a cosmic chessboard, Poseidon claimed Atlantis, his star-born accord. 10 twin suns, throne of tridents waves at his command. Empire stretched from bow, big stones to Mayan sand. Monoliths stacked like Legos blocks no crane could lift. Sonic levitation, gods don't need pulleys or grit. Athena taught Athens, Hephaestus forged veins of gold, but Atlantis spires pierced heaven, stories untold. Because of virtue, divine blood pure in the veins. No egregious geodesic temples where starlight reigns, but mortality crept in, diluted the grace. Gold turned to rust, hubris eclipsed the god fast.
Of Atlantis, drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom, where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tiwanaku, the cold section all as above, so below. Cosmic empire of laws and princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walked the sea.
Zeus watched her fall, saw vice crack the divine. Pyramids hummed warnings, but they ignored the signs. Sky split with fury, tsunami swallowed their pride. Atlantis sang screaming, a blueprint survived. Complex foundation, stones that defy modern math. 1,000-ton puzzle, gravity's aftermath. Scholars still baffled how they align the stars. They rode cosmic currents, breaching space-time's bars. Now divers chase shadows where crystal cities gleamed. AI scans the ocean, but truth's a half-dream. Dream Freemasons whisper maps in their lodges of lore. Plato's Critias, a metaphor or a war.
Echoes of Atlantis, drowned in the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom, where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tiwanaku, the cold tension all as above, so below. Cosmic empire of laws and princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walk the sea.
They say Poseidon's seed still flows in our veins. In every megalith, every grid that restrains. The Dogon chart Sirius, temples guard the flame. But Atlantis tech, it's encoded in our DNA's frame. Zeus's verdict was fire, a flood and ice. Yet the Sphinx still stares, whispering sacrifice. Mortal minds crave power, but miss the design. True kings rule through resonance, not bloodline. Now decode the ruins, their psalms etched in stone. A star-born king's empire, now dust and bone. The hall of records buried neath Giza's cold gaze holds anti-gravity schematics from pre-flood days. Crystal engines hummed, Orgon fueled their might, till pride turned their frequencies dissonant blight. The Anunnaki fled, Mars colonies crumbled. Leviathan's bones in the Mariana rumbled. But Poseidon's ghost rides the Bermuda's mist. Evolve past the greed or drown in the abyss. Tsunamis taller than gods crack continents like eggs. Jungles of Egypt drowned, turned to sand in Poseidon's regret. Mammals shrunk to lapdogs, skies choked by volcanic breath. Waves circled the globe thrice, 3 funerals for death. Up Napiston, rode the arc of frequencies, not wood. Up tetrahedron ziggurat where anti-grav pulses stood. While Atlantis sank, he spliced DNA and quantum seeds, stashed them in Göbekley's veins and Indus Valley reeds. Volcanic winter's curse, Zeus hit the reset, scorched the grids, erased the moon-ringed internet. Noah's not a shepherd, he's a star-born archivist, cracking hermetic scrolls in caves where mushrooms twist. The survivors crawl from mud with amnesiac eyes, built new gods from scrap metal and fallen skies. Now desert bones whisper where cedars once soared. Man's just a ghost in Atlantis' holographic horde. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's new. The flood wasn't water, it was math. A codex purge, Enoch's nightmares digitized in the cosmic surge. As above, so below, the blueprint stays true. Rise from the ashes or drown in what's you. Echoes of Atlantis drowned in the deep, the deep. Poseidon's lost kingdom where titans still sleep. From Giza to Tiwanaku, their codes etched in awe. As above, so below, cosmic empire of law. 10 princes of plasma, their thrones now debris. Echoes of Atlantis, where gods walk the sea. So when you see Stonehenge, Angkor Wat spire, know Atlantis
Okay, I went ahead and ended that before the last song started on there so we can get to it and everything. Now, before... Y'all hear muted. But before we get started, I wanted to just let you know, too, this isn't going to be like the same conversation we had about this with him as what we did before, okay? I'm not going to get all into the history and everything. I will let everybody know that what happened was Aaron Swartz ended up hacking into libraries that were set up by a university and illegally downloaded all their information. And he was arrested, and he was sentenced, or he was about to be sentenced pretty harshly for what he had done. Now, on January the 11th of 2013, he was found dead in his apartment in Brooklyn, New York, and that was by hanging. He committed suicide. Now, I know we had this conversation before, but like especially with what we've been discussing here about like the history of these supposed hackers. Okay, I know you don't like hearing the word, but I'm gonna say it. Okay, and the dealings that were done to them. I mean, they were basically given a slap on the hand. Okay, and my question to you, Mark, is this. Okay, why was this incident so much more important than those other incidents where they barely got a smack on the hand for doing what they did, and they were going to frickin' sentence him? I believe they were going to sentence him to up to 30 years, wasn't it? You know, that's my big question to you.
You'd have to look at these specific. Yeah, I would have to review the specific trials. I would have to, I would have to review the specific trials you're talking about.
Potential penalties up to 35 years in prison and a $1 million fine. Okay, and repeatedly, one right after the other of all of these supposed hackers that was arrested, their freaking sentences were freaking small. I mean, nothing. Basically a smack on the hand. But for this case, they were that harsh on them. You know, I have my opinion on it, but I don't know. You don't like conjecture, so I don't know if I should say it.
No, yeah, you shouldn't treat each trial as the same as the last one.
Well, what makes this one?
You should be reviewing each of these trials as individual cases.
Well, what was the difference between this one and
you've not provided any data on any other trials?
Yeah, I did. What about
you just said trials, other trials. You haven't specified which ones you're talking about.
What about the one I just mentioned where the black hat freaking hacker group freaking actually got on Twitter and was bragging about it, and then the guy got freaking arrested, and they basically slapped him on the hand and said, freaking, you did bad, you're a bad boy.
Georgia, what? Sorry, you've got to be more specific.
Huh?
I would usually title like something like Mr. Smith versus the state of Florida or something. You have to be more specific about trials. You can't just make a nondescript sort of argument.
So, I mean, and I mentioned it in the last episode too, where I mean, he wasn't just.
You didn't actually mention any other trials.
Yeah, I did. I actually mentioned about 3 or 4 of them.
You didn't name them specifically.
Yeah, dude, I freaking did. I mean, I told you about the DDoS freaking attacks that took place on Sony. What was his name?
So who was
his name was Julius Kivimaki. He was a Finnish teen, and he was convicted of over 50,000 cyber attacks. And he received a suspended sentence, dude.
Okay, versus who?
Finland, apparently. I mean, it's like freaking that's not even a point. The actual point that you need to be focusing on that's important. The important part is he got away with it with a slap on the hand, dude. And it's repeated, okay? That's my question. I don't care about court cases.
Yeah,
they're over and over again. If you want to know,
I think you should when you come to these sort of things.
It's repeated.
I mean, you can't just make blanket statements.
It's repeated, dude. They don't even have accurate people who are actually arrested.
He's being tried in a U.S. court. This other bloke is being tried in a Finnish court. Last time I checked, Finland isn't part of the U.S.
Well, what about we were talking about the Max Headroom hacking, okay? To this day, they still don't know who was responsible for that. They don't even care, dude. It's like you know what I mean? And to me, I seriously think that was
if you've got nobody to charge, if you've got nobody to charge, then there is no court case.
No, when a crime has been committed, that crime has to be investigated. It might become a cold case, but it is not gone and ever forgotten. That is what law and justice is about.
Okay, so it's going to be stuck in the bottom of a archive in some public
apparently they didn't even do a proper investigation when it happened, right? So what makes that different than this case, okay, where all of a sudden he's getting 35 years and he's being fined a $1 million. And I'll tell you what it's for. It's because these intellectual elites are monopolizing these.
Bring up the transcripts of the trial.
Do you know how much it costs for a
Bring up the transcripts of the trial.
Hey, hold up. Do you know how much it costs for a student?
Irrelevant. Bring up the transcripts of the trial. Let's find the thing. If you want to go deep, do a deep dive into the soldier, then let's do a deep dive. Bring up the transcripts.
Okay. We can bring up the transcripts later if you want. But what I'm going to say right here is this is what it appears to me, okay? It appears to me that these people make a shitload of money out of exploiting college students. How much money does it cost a college student to go to college? And then when they get into college, they have to pay for these textbooks. These textbooks are outrageously expensive. And they know it, and they take it and use that to exploit them so that they can get rich and become fat cats and holiday and the French Rivieras. Okay? And what he did is he hit them where it hurt them. He hit them in their pocketbooks, and they didn't like it. And that's why they went after him as hard as they did, because he ended up doing it. And all of
so he violated copyright. He violated copyright laws.
Most likely it was I believe it was actually terms of service. That's what they eventually got him for.
So it was a civil action, not a. So it
was a criminal. Apparently, it was a criminal action because they were going to sentence him up to
you don't go to prison for violating a contract. And this is you don't go to prison because that's a civil issue.
Well, I mean. What I've heard about it was he actually went into court and they got him because he agreed to terms on the terms of service, and when he broke
legal contracts come under civil legislation in the US and the Western world. Civil legislation cannot be prosecuted as a custodial sentence or custodial case.
Well, then,
This is one of the most basic sort of matters that in law, that you, especially in US law, that you should be knowledgeable about.
now Aaron Swartz was charged under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the CFAA, for illegally accessing and downloading millions of academic articles for JSTOR, from the JSTOR database.
So it wasn't a terms of service agreement. He actually violated a custodial crime or custodial.
He faced 4 felony charges, which later increased to 13, including wire fraud, computer fraud, and unlawful access to protected computer.
Okay.
To a protected computer. So that's what he was charged with. He was initially charged with 1 count of wire fraud and later superseded.
The charges are irrelevant. What was he convicted with?
Huh?
The charges are really irrelevant unless there's a conviction there.
No,
So what was he convicted for?
he was in the middle of hearings when he committed suicide. Like he had already heard that it was going to be a pretty harsh judgment, and he freaking just couldn't cope with it, and he killed himself. So he wasn't even able to be sentenced. You know, he was initially charged with 1 count. Let me finish. He was initially charged with 1 count of wire fraud, and later superseded indictment added another count. And a later superseding indictment added another count. Wire fraud involves electronic communications like the internet to defraud someone. And then the second one was violations of Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. He was charged with multiple violations of CFAA. Specifically, he was charged with unlawfully obtaining information from a protected computer, recklessly damaging a protected computer. In total, the final indictment included 13 felony counts, 2 counts of wire fraud, and 11 counts of violating the CFAA. Which
and a judge should look at that as each individual count and should create punishments based upon each single account. So, which in total equates to 30 years.
These charges stemmed from Swartz's actions of systematically downloading articles from JSTOR, an online academic journal repository, using MIT's network. Now, the prosecution argued that his actions constituted unauthorized access and misuse of a computer network, leading to these charges. So they basically got him because he was on an MIT network as well as
when he didn't have authorization to be.
And he was doing multiple freaking files as well. Okay, but it still goes back to what I was saying. What makes his freaking charge different than these others that were previously?
Again, you have to bring up the details of those other.
There really is none that's as profound as this case. This is actually one of the most profound cases in the United States, to be honest with you. And I do want to make a point out, too, here. I was wrong. Anonymous was not founded because of this incident. They were going well beforehand, but they were very closely involved with situations that happened afterwards when it came to this happening, when Aaron Swartz committed suicide. It kind of fueled their whole movement, basically. But I did find that out. I had to go back and double check on all that. But I mean that's what it comes down to. It's like there is no difference, and that's what it comes from. These people have been doing this.
So you say there was exact the methods that the other cases you suggesting were exactly the same methods as was used in this case.
They did worse.
There was the same motivation.
No, they were worse than what Aaron was, dude. Aaron
I would have to read the transcript.
That was even half as bad. I mean, they literally hacked into freaking Sony and Xbox. People who paid freaking good money to be on those freaking platforms. They disrupted their freaking network and hacked into it. That is freaking offensive to people who paid for that freaking service, not just the company, dude. Okay,
but they are different cases. You should treat each case on its own merits. I mean, we talked about judges in the past on other streams, and you're making an argument that just because this judge has sentenced this person for murder for 30 years, then he has to sentence every person that's been found guilty of murder for 30 years.
Well, apparently, freaking, they don't feel that way. They just feel that this one situation deserves 35 years in prison and $1 million fine.
The relevance of the
you know. Okay, so you went kind of blank there for a second. We finally got you back. It gave me a chance to actually say something while you were sitting there. You froze again.
Listen, to review every single case you are thinking of and see the differences and what they were charged with. It's the specific details.
Well, I mean, the corruption that's involved with the internet is insane. And it goes deep into this whole thing with frickin', even with the college level frickin' educational system too, when it comes to that. Okay, that situation right there. These people frickin', they got hit hard. They got hit in the pocket, and they wanted to retaliate. They say it was to set an example. Set an example for what exactly? You know what I mean? I mean, he did absolutely nothing that was even close to as bad as what these other people did whatsoever. Okay.
Again, I would have to review the transcripts. I would have to review the cases.
You know, I mean,
I'm not willing to make such blanket statements.
The only people that got harmed here were people who make money off of this freaking information, and that's it.
So are you saying that people that make money are not entitled to justice?
Well, what about the people?
That's your argument.
The people who got hacked with Xbox and freaking Sony, dude. Why can't they get the money they deserve? They paid for that freaking account, dude. These hackers are going in and they're hacking and freaking that and causing disruptions and then bragging about it on Twitter only to be freaking let go. Slap them on the hand. Oh, you bad boy, don't do it again.
Just because somebody says that they've committed murder doesn't mean that they've committed murder. I could go onto Twitter and say, well, yeah, I fucking genocided half of the UK.
They caught the dude.
I have.
They caught the dude. Okay. They caught him. They caught him.
It's down to knowing the details.
You know, I mean, and that is a valid point in my opinion. Why? You know, and I ask the question: why is it that his freaking sentence was a harsher freaking treatment than all of these others? And I've pointed out facts of freaking hackers who have just been let off. They don't even care.
Again, it all depends on the details.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you cannot make blank. You would never make a good lawyer, solicitor, judge, because if you're going to make such blanket things, then
Well, I mean, if you want me to do a deep dive, we can do a deep dive. I mean, like we did yesterday. You really loved that one, didn't you? You want me to do a deep dive, Mark Edworthy? I'll do a deep dive, and then
the
we'll.
such spurious claims.
I mean, you know, they aren't claims. I mean, the only problem here is the fact that you want me to pull up the information. I'm bringing it to you.
I'm stating that you made these spurious claims.
And I've proven it. I've thrown freaking 3, maybe 4 cases in your face. And
you haven't actually specified the names. You haven't actually specified the actual
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I got 2 of them right here that I just mentioned. I got freaking the one. I got the one just now that freaking was from Finland that freaking got busted, and then there was one before him,
which is in a totally different jurisdiction that has got no legal, which the U.S. got no legal remit in.
Then I got.
So it's not relevant.
No, I got freaking Captain Crunch, who was John Draper. He was arrested in the mid-1970s for phone phreaking. He was using a toy whistle to make free calls and mimicking AT&T tones so that he can make free calls. Now, he was ripping off the AT&T for freaking actual phone calls, which is money.
So, but he was in charge with the same under the same legislation as whether.
Freaking in 1983, 414s, a group of teens from Milwaukee were the first hackers to make national news after breaking into dozens of high-profile systems, including Los Alamos National Lab. Okay? They got arrested, but most only got probation.
Yeah, what were they charged under?
Huh?
What were they being charged under?
They weren't being charged under because this...
Oh, if you get arrested, then you...
This law that they ended up freaking arresting Aaron for freaking coincidentally wasn't there, so freaking guess what? They didn't get arrested and charged 35 freaking years for it.
Yeah, that's the point. You say...
I was saying, this is what
that was one of the points I was trying to state. Just because Aaron got charged with a certain law back in... When was it?
They want to regulate. They want to freaking
when was Aaron charged?
You talking about freaking the 414s, or are you talking about? Oh, Aaron. Aaron was charged back in 2015, I believe. Okay. And then like CDK. I mean, if you want to talk about CDK, these hackers literally went in. Not only did they freaking hack freaking CDK, but the mother company that they had was actually freaking hacked too, as well as a subsidiary of them that was involved in the Canadian military, you know, and I don't think to this day they even know who freaking was involved in that. You know, that's the thing that really gets me about it. Let me put up a background because Mark Edworthy is not here. He had some issues, so I'm going to go ahead and put that up and that up, and we'll have that open. But that is one of the that's what really gets me about this. Is it's just when we had this last conversation, I really didn't think that it was covered enough, you know, when it comes to a lot of the stuff that was being said. So that's the one reason why I wanted to bring it up. Now I'm taking this down. I just had to put something up because you got taken off.
Yeah, I lost you for a couple of minutes.
You got excited and started getting rebellious is what happened. You turned into a wild man and started moving around erratically and saying wild, fancy stuff. Now, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of go over that, because I mean I don't think that whole topic was actually discussed too well. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, so I and that's the one thing that really irritates me when it comes to this shit. I mean, I know the man clearly committed a crime, okay, but the issue for me is the fact that freaking why was it so important to be so harsh on the sentencing? You know,
Because new legislation came in, and that new legislation allowed for such actions.
dude, freaking what was it? 2013
Yeah.
is when he committed suicide. Let me go back a little bit. I'll find out more on this whole thing with.
He wasn't mentally stable in the first place. So could there be? Could he have been? I don't know, put into a mental institution rather than into a actual prison?
The attacks on Sony happened in 2014 on Christmas Day, dude, by the Lizard Squad. 3 years after, okay, after he committed suicide.
But it was the exact same actions. Who was tried, and
They did worse.
Again,
They did worse. They attacked
again.
They did worse, and then they bragged about it on Twitter and got away with it, man. You know what I mean? It's like, freaking come on, dude.
How did they get away with it?
Freaking what's his name? Dude from Finland got arrested, and they.
So it's under Finnish law, not U.S. law, not U.S. federal law.
I don't.
Aaron was found guilty under U.S. federal law, not Finnish law.
Let's look at CDK and what we were talking about there. I was talking about that when you fell off on the thing, okay? These hackers turn around and freaking literally brought down the car industry for a long time, to the point where they were having to write out freaking the bills and stuff in the old styles and everything, and held them hostage for freaking money so that they could get their information back. And to this day, they still don't know who the hackers were. They have no clue.
Well, yeah. If you cannot find you cannot find somebody to blame, then how can you bring a case against them?
They're not even trying, dude. They don't care.
Eh?
They don't even freaking care. But they care about freaking Aaron, who ended up freaking stealing information.
Again, you're just talking. You're talking about Finnish legislation compared to U.S. federal legislation, which are two completely different countries and two different legal jurisdictions.
Well, okay, who were the other people that were involved? I'm sure it wasn't just some kid from freaking Finland. You know what I mean?
Were they charged? Were they found? Were they prosecuted?
No effort
so
was.
If they weren't found, then how do you know? Speculation.
Usually with crimes, when you find one freaking culprit, they usually give in and freaking tell you who the other ones are, or it makes it to where you have a lead so that you can find the other people involved.
Again,
I find it odd. I find it odd that freaking none of this happens. You know what I mean? That none of this happened in that case. Like,
and does Finland after the Finnish after are they legally responsible to give that information to other jurisdictions?
I don't want to be really harsh about it, but to me it seems like Europe has a really, really bad code of ethics when it comes to internet freaking regulation and how they take care of freaking their people and protect them. Because it seems like they just, allowed this kid to just walk scot-free.
European Union and most even non-EU EA countries have implemented the general data protection regulations. We've got much more stronger internet.
Well, apparently,
regulations.
apparently what you guys do is you catch these guys, you smack them on the frickin' wrist, and you say, "You are a bad boy. Go home and don't do it again."
Again, it depends on each individual case. You cannot just make a blanket statement for all cases. The law doesn't work like that.
I mean, you've
Maybe it
also,
works like that in China and North Korea,
you've also
but not
got,
in any sort of Western liberal country.
you've also got this cool chaos club, man, that runs around, and they are freaking activists who believe in ethical hacking, dude. Not only do they believe in it, but they write freaking journals on saying this is how you do it. Aren't they cool?
As is, again, in using the modern word term,
They're out of
meaning
Germany.
to hacking, ethical hacking is a bit of an anathema. B, sure, I can write report on security issues and manuals on how to. I have done actually. Relatively small manuals on how to secure sites and stuff, but and how to I don't know, sniff a site and stuff. But there's a difference between writing a manual and actually following and using that material to create some sort of criminal activity.
I mean,
People write books on how to produce.
see, people write books.
In most European countries, but just because you're writing a book about something doesn't mean that you actually it's your fault that somebody else is actually using a book to actually do that task.
You know, and so what's the deal with Aaron? Since he took and he downloaded those books,
He actually actively
downloaded those books, and he didn't do it for personal gain. See, he didn't gain any money whatsoever.
that's not an argument. He committed a crime.
Right, I understand that, but it still doesn't come back to the fact of why he got treated so harshly about it when it wasn't even for personal gain, dude. Like, you know, he didn't even brag about it, dude. You know what I mean? It's like these other guys got on Twitter and just bragged about how cool they were. You know what I'm saying? And they get